We are at Wesley Chapel, United Methodist Church in Reesville, North Carolina. This is my home church. This is the church in which I grew up and experienced the call to ordain ministry in the United Methodist Church. There is a long history of advocacy and justice that's born inside of this church. I remember being in this church as a child. I also remember that on Sunday mornings we would come to Sunday school, and as we would leave our house, we would stop up and down the road and we would pick up my cousins and my aunts, and we would all come to Sunday school together. It was in this church that I received my call to ordain ministry in the United Methodist Church, and I remember it. It was a February morning in 1980. I was going through the house and I was asking God, what could I do? And God spoke to me in the way God speaks to me, preaching and to be a preacher. And that was the furthest thing from my mind. And so I began to talk to my father and tell him what was going on. And he said, good. And we prayed about it. And he said, keep on praying about it. And there came a point when I said, okay, God, I will do this as long as I know you are the one who's calling me to do it. The ironic thing that happened was in 1995, my district superintendent called me one day and said, Sam, I went to Wesley Chapel one Sunday, and as your father prayed, he prayed for all the United Methodist pastors, and especially for his son, who was pastoring in Central. The superintendent thinks that you need to be the next pastor at Wesley Chapel. And so in June of 1995, I pulled the U-Haul out of 115 James Avenue, Thomasville, on my way back to Reesville. And as I was on the way back, a lot of memories were flooding through my head. And just to fast forward, 60 days later, my father died. So I was his pastor for about 60 days. So that's part of the background, that's part of the history of who I am, and that's part of what got me into ministry in the United Methodist Church. And while this ministry here was difficult, I would not give anything for it because it was transformative, it changed me, and I hope and trust that it changed the members of the church and the community. Today as I come in, it's weird. Whole lot of emotions, whole lot of memories, things of that nature. Advocacy, justice, I learned that here at Wesley Chapel. During the Civil Rights Movement, this church was in the middle of it. And that kind of leads up to where we are now as it relates to the question of same-sex orientation and things of that nature. I see it as a justice issue. I was at a meeting last year with church as we were trying to work on our appointment. And one of the members asked me, well, Sam, what do you think about this? You're gonna leave the United Methodist Church? And I told him the history. And I said, if I was to lead the United Methodist Church, I would disrespect my ancestors because they endured a lot to remain a part of the United Methodist Church. So I'm gonna remain, and I'm gonna advocate. I'm gonna make room for my gay, lesbian, transgender brothers and sisters so that there will be room for them. I want this church, the future United Methodist Church, to be a strong and vibrant denomination. This denomination, this church. So my goal is to leave this church as strong as I can possibly leave it. A church that's inclusive, a church that's vital, a church that's making a difference, a church that's focused on the mission, and that mission is making disciples of Jesus for the transformation of the world. And my ministry has been whoever will come and work with me as we allow God to work through us to make a difference in the lives of people in the community. Come and join me. And so I hope that's what the future United Methodist Church will look like. I'm working every day so that it will be.